A suit and a white business shirt were brought in one day to the dry cleaners where I work. Normally, I would have accepted them with a smile, asked the client what they wanted us to do with the clothes, and have them write down a few things on a slip of paper, standard procedure. This time was different. The suit and business shirt all seemed to be very familiar, and it didn't take too long for me to find out why. These clothes were definitely my husband's. He was supposed to be on a business trip, so why are they here? The woman who brought the clothes offered a credit card. When I saw the name on it, I was shocked to my very core. This was my name. What the hell is going on? This is the story of how I uncovered a mysterious reality regarding my arrogant husband and how I took measures to exact my rightful revenge on him. My name is Pamela, but everyone calls me Pam. I'm 30 years old and I'm a part-time housewife. I used to live with my husband, Franklin, who's 5 years older than me and works in an office for a textbook manufacturer enterprise. We initially met through an arranged marriage agency and started dating after chatting went very well. I quickly became infatuated with his compassion towards all things great and small, and everything he said, I felt like I'd learned something new and deep. His voice complemented that. He had a very deep rumble of a voice, the kind that sends vibrations through your bones and calms you down so much. We stayed together for 13 months before we got married a year ago. Franklin is a company executive with a high annual income, and he's a tall and well-educated man. I, on the other hand, started working right after graduating from high school. I couldn't keep up with the human relationships at work, being a bit of an inherent introvert, so I had no choice but to quit my first job for my own good. My mental health needed it. And after that, I lived at my parents' home while working part-time. My parents were very supportive of me regarding my life decision, but that didn't mean they weren't worried about me. They were especially concerned about my relationship status and suggested that I should register with a marrying agency. I didn't think anyone would ask me to marry them, but Franklin proved me wrong. Never had I been so happy being wrong in my life. What is it about me that makes you like me, Franklin?
I guess it's the fact that you're very down to earth. Lots of women these days only talk about their jobs and hobbies and don't take enough time to listen to the things I want to say. But you listen to me a lot, and that gives me a feeling of security. Thank you, Pam, for giving me the safety I hope to find in a relationship, and I hope I'll be by your side forever.
My parents were very happy that I married Franklin, and I was happy to be able to reassure them that I was going to be okay. Married life was peaceful at best, monotonous at worst. I would get up early, make breakfast for my husband, and wave him off to work when he left. Then I would do the laundry and clean the house. Cleaning the house was always easy because I didn't really have that many belongings inside. My personal belongings, like my clothes, bags, and accessories, were all brought by my husband, and they were all in one place, which was the bedroom closet. As for the reason why he brought all of my personal belongings, I honestly don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but when I asked him that question one day, he responded,
When you become my wife, I want you to dress appropriately. Please don't bring any of the things you used to wear before we got married. I'll take care of everything, and I'll make sure you look stunning all the time.
But I don't think anything this expensive will suit me.
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. Please don't use any cosmetics without my permission, okay, Pam? Please make sure to use the ones I picked out for you. I'll give you a credit card so you can buy groceries and detergent and stuff like that, but I'll keep an eye on your statements. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Oh, no, that's already more than enough. Honey, I've never spent this much on cosmetics. It could even be extravagant in my book. Thank you so much.
You should be thankful, honestly. I'm always doing you a bunch of favors after all.
Yes, I'm aware, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I've never been good at making decisions on my own, so I've completely gotten used to relying on my husband for fashion, for makeup, and for anything else that was personal. Franklin often came home late from work and had to eat dinner out. Even on weekends and vacations, he was usually away on a business trip.
I've been so busy with work and I haven't been giving you any attention. I'm so sorry for neglecting you, Pam.
Oh no, honey, it's all right. I'm sure your work is very demanding, and I understand.
I'm on the elite track at the company after all, and when you're on the path towards great success, the focus you need to achieve your goals always has to come first. And I guess it doesn't really ring any bells for you because you've been an employee for a while.
Elite track, that's impressive.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, I almost forgot. There's a party next Saturday that'll be hosted by some affiliates of ours. I signed us both up to attend, and you have to look like the most beautiful girl there, Pam. And I'm sure that with the measures I took, that will surely become a reality. I made an appointment at a hair salon, so go here on this date and time.
Huh? Oh, okay. Thank you, Franklin.
I decided the hairstyle and color, and I let them know already, so just go with it, please. I promise you, you're gonna look amazing.
Yes, sir. In this manner, as long as I obeyed my husband and adhered to what he wished me to appear as in his loving wife, I was able to live a life without any inconvenience. But then something unexpected happened that sent all sense of safety and security with Franklin out the window and introduced a new, unwelcome sense of fear. That morning, after I'd waved him off to work as usual, I was cleaning the house. Today was the day to go to the hairdresser, as he had instructed me to do. We had that party that evening, and I had to put on the dress he had brought for me and make the preparations to be ready on time. I was feeling down, even though I hadn't been out the house in a while. In retrospect, I think the reason why I felt a bit blue was because it was right around then that I started to feel a bit overwhelmed with how underwhelming my life here really was. When you're bored, it eventually starts to infiltrate your mind, and things can seem very stressful, even though they're anything but that. The housework was easy, and Franklin brought me everything and anything I needed, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted something more, something productive, something invigorating, something to help me wake up in the morning. I was thinking about all of this when I was about to head out to the front door. That's when I accidentally caught my elbow on a half-full cup of coffee I had left out on the table that morning. The coffee fell on the hem of my dress and created a very unpleasant black stain. Oh no, what should I do? Oh, what am I going to do? I can't wear this. I panicked and changed into another dress in a hurry, and I arrived at the hairdresser just in time for my appointment. The lady who took care of my hair was so nice, and honestly, I had fun. It had been a while since I talked with someone other than Franklin, and it was a girl talk too, so that gave me a huge shot in the arm. I left the hairdresser feeling bright and looking beautiful, but first things first, I waited for a cab, told the driver where the party was being held, and all the while looked for the nearest dry cleaner. The coffee-stained dress I know was so very expensive, and I had to get the stain out as soon as possible. I looked frantically around the streets, and then I saw a small dry cleaning store. Oh, driver, can you stop here for just one moment, please? The driver kindly obliged, and I ran into the dry cleaner. An elderly woman was at the reception desk, looking at me with a disconcerting amount of dismay as I rushed into the store. Hi, I've come with a request for a stain removal, please. Oh dear, you're in such a hurry. It must be a pretty important event you're going to. Well, then let's see. Yes, the sleeve. Coffee, isn't it? Oh, no worries, honey. Everything's gonna be all right. I can take care of this. Oh, are you sure everything's going to be okay? It was so careless of me when I stained the dress. I should have been paying more attention. Oh, everyone has accidents every now and then, and it happens to the best of us, no matter how careful we're trying to be, honey. Now, you leave it to me, and I promise I'll have it as good as new in a couple of days. The elderly clerk smiled and handed me a deposit slip. Her smile made my whole body just relax, and I haven't felt such a warm smile on my face in months. I hadn't really thought about it right up until that moment. In my view, people need warmth on two levels. They need physical warmth in order to survive natural elements, and that's the most obvious. The second kind is psychological warmth, which can be provided by a variety of different sources. A smile is one. A kind word is another. But to me, the greatest source of warmth, comfort, and security is in the arms of someone I love dearly. That moment made me realize that my soul was devoid of all warmth because I hadn't received any of these from Franklin in so long. I noticed that my fingers were clutching the coffee-stained dress and had turned completely stiff, and opening my hand took a lot more effort than I thought. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please do what you can to make it as good as new. Please. Yes, my dear. You have my word. Now off you go. That outfit suggests you have somewhere really special to be right now. And you can't miss that. Now go on, have a nice night out. Don't have too much fun. And by the way, you look much better in the dress you're wearing right now. I couldn't help but smile. It's been a long time since I've even smiled so naturally, too. Up until then, I've just been forcing myself to smile all the time. I got back into the cab, feeling completely at ease. I got out of the cab at the entrance of the hotel where I was meeting Franklin, unbeknownst to the fact that I would be met with a blood-curdling horror at the party venue. I hurried to the lounge where I was told to meet him and started looking around. I found him first, approached him, and tapped him on the shoulder. And as I said, "Sorry to keep you waiting, Franklin, honey,
Oh, hey. Wait, what? What's with that outfit?
When he turned around and saw me, he suddenly started yelling at the top of his lungs at me. I was startled that I stiffened up and I found myself unable to speak. He glared at me in a frightening manner and yelled at me even more.
What the hell did I frickin' tell you? Who told you to wear these frickin' rags? I told you time and time again to wear everything I instructed you. How dare you disobey me?
His intimidating outburst drew the attention of everyone in proximity, and the hotel staff came up to him to see what was going on. My husband just sucked his teeth in annoyance and grabbed my immobilized arm and tried to pull me out of the lounge by force. Ow! I'm so sorry. I spilled coffee on my dress and... I tried my best to explain as my husband dragged me away. Right as I said that I spilled coffee on the dress he stopped moving, and he kept his back turned toward me and mumbled.
What the hell? I see now. You really went along to let me frickin' embarrass myself, huh?
I turned pale. He turned around and smiled at me. The smile itself was genuinely kind, but the crumpled forehead emphasized the look of disappointment and anger that raged on in his eyes.
Well, I'll be damned. Sorry I took things too far. You just be more careful next time, okay?
Yes, of course. After that, I don't remember what we talked about at the party or what I ate. I don't remember if I was able to make a proper response when my husband beside me spoke to me about anything. The only thing that was on my mind at that point was the perpetual replay of my husband yelling at me in a frightening manner. It was as though the man whom I'd fallen in love with had been possessed by a demon, and I will admit I was afraid he was going to do things to me that I don't even want to imagine. After that incident, Franklin's attitude toward me gradually changed.
Hey, breakfast isn't ready yet? You're a real scumbag, you know that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be ready in a minute.
Shake a leg and get on with it.
Yes, sir. My husband's behavior has become abusive. I couldn't relax every morning before I waved him off. I had to be on full alert for fear of disappointing him. That incident had ignited a stubborn instinct of melancholic apprehension within. Anything I might do could potentially trigger him into another one of these fits, and while I was lucky to have a good reason why I had to disobey his instructions last time, such luck can run out extremely quickly in a nutshell. I was always scared whenever Franklin was home, but after he left for work, I could catch my breath and get on with my life. Then one day, I came home from shopping to find the landline ringing. I quickly picked up the phone in a panic, and my husband's angry voice rang in my ears.
Hey, where the frick have you been? Do you know how many times I called you?
I'm sorry, I was shopping.
Don't frickin' make excuses. I'm the one who's providing everything for you to frickin' live, woman. Show your husband some frickin' respect. I'm your first priority, and I come before anything else. Do you understand that?
Yes, I understand. I'm sorry.
Honestly, man, unemployed women have literally no common sense. I'm calling you because I'll be home early tonight, so get dinner ready, and I need to talk to you about something.
Wait, what? What do you want to talk about? I was in the middle of asking when he hung up the phone. I cooked for my husband, who was having dinner at home with me for the first time in a long time. He came home and started eating right away. I made his favorite dish, which was pulled pork on top of cheesy mashed potatoes, so he ate it without a word of complaint.
It tasted okay. Now down to business. I'm going to have to ask you to sign these papers.
I gasped when I realized what I was looking at. The document he held out to me was none other than a divorce decree, and he had already filled it out, the section designated to the husband in the marriage. These are divorce papers?
Yes, divorce papers. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not looking for a divorce right now.
What? Then why do I have to sign it?
This is just when I decide to get a divorce.
When did you decide to get a divorce?
Yeah, it's more convenient than writing it down in the future when the time comes.
Convenient. As I listened to Franklin's words, which made no sense whatsoever, I felt something welling up inside me. It was something I hadn't felt in a long time, and I had the irresistible urge to scream. It took all of my willpower to keep both my head and my body from being visibly upset. I voluntarily loosened my clutching fist, I relaxed my shoulders, and I kept my voice steady. No.
Hey yo, did you just say something?
That did it. Everything I kept bottled up for the sake of staying civil overflowed with vigor. No, I refuse! You're too selfish, Franklin! My husband was completely taken aback by my defying him for the first time, but that only lasted briefly. He soon became furious and started yelling at me.
You little bitch. Do you understand your position here? You are freaking unemployed and you depend on me with your puny goddamn life. You are a mediocre existence that can change depending on one single thought of mine.
I'm nothing like that, but I'm also a person. How can we call ourselves husband and wife if you hold me down one way or the other like this? If you want a divorce, fine. I'll go write up those stupid divorce papers and give them back to you right now. Give me those. I was surprised by my own courage to say what I wanted to say. My husband began to soothe me with that calming voice of his, perhaps a little jittery over my unexpected counterattack.
No, calm down. Listen, nobody said anything about getting divorced right now, Pamela.
Then what did you bring that up for? Or is there some reason you need divorce papers right now? My question probably struck a nerve because it made my husband gasp in shock, albeit quietly. I didn't miss that reaction. And from that moment onward, I knew my relationship with him was going to come to an end very soon. I understand. All right then. No divorce papers.
What the hell? It was just an idea, Pam.
I felt a strong sense of distrust when he said it was just an idea to get me to sign the divorce papers. I decided that once and for all, I could no longer be at his beck and call. Additionally, my husband had secrets, and that was precisely why I couldn't trust him anymore, and why I was going to end things one day. The next day, he told me he had to go on a sudden business trip.
It's a long business trip, so I don't know when I'll be back, Pam. Just stay at home and wait for me. Oh yeah, I confiscated your credit card. I'll think about giving you another one again when you've had time to think about what you did yesterday.
That's what he said as he walked out the door, and this time, I didn't even bother to wave him off. I guess he wasn't too happy with my behavior that day before. He's trying to get me into financial trouble and bring me to my knees. After he left, I took a deep, deep breath. I felt so good inside. I was most surprised at myself for being able to talk back at him with such courage and vigor. I literally had him stammering by the end, and considering how I was basically his little doll to decorate, it felt amazing to stand up for myself for once. But the fact was that nothing had changed. Franklin was right about one point. He was the only reason why I was able to live with a roof over my head and with good food and water to keep me alive. I completely depended upon him for support from my husband. That limited my options, and I could either run back to my parents' house or get on my knees to beg for Franklin's forgiveness. I was about to open the refrigerator to get something to eat when I saw a slip of paper with a magnet on it. Oh, damn, the dress at the dry cleaners. I had to get it. I remembered the kind lady that I saw at the dry cleaners and hoped she was there that day. And when I arrived, I was so surprised to see that the coffee stain was gone. It had vanished as though it was never there to begin with. Wow, it came out so beautifully. This dress looks newer than new, just like she said. The male clerk at the reception desk nodded curtly at my praising. I was a little disappointed that the older woman who helped me the other day was not there. So there was an older lady at the reception desk the other day, but I'm guessing she's not here today? The male clerk explained that he was actually the owner of the establishment and that the older woman was his mother. She got sick a few days ago and was instructed to stay home and rest for a couple of days. And they were looking for a temporary part-timer, so I couldn't stop myself. I would like to work here if possible. Can I submit my resume? The clerk was taken aback by my sudden offer. However, they were very desperate in need of help, so he requested that I come back later that day to submit my resume. After lunch, I whipped up my resume, showed the clerk, and was hired immediately. I started working at the dry cleaners and learned my job diligently every day, and within 2 weeks, I was able to perform the necessary tasks to a certain extent. The next time my husband came home, I wanted to have a serious discussion about our divorce. And in order to do so, I would keep my current job, using it as a stepping stone to independence. My determination seemed to be reflected in my work, because every single day, the owner, whose name was Mr. Weber, complimented me on my performance. Then one day, a female customer came in with a suit and a white business shirt. "Can you clean these for me? They're brand name items, so please be careful with them." Now, normally, I would have accepted them with a smile and just write down the client's information, standard procedures. But this time, it was different. The suit and the business shirt all seemed too familiar to me, and it didn't take long for me to notice why. Those clothes were definitely my husband's. He was supposed to be away on a business trip, so why are they here with this woman? The woman who brought the clothes offered a credit card to pay, and when I saw the name on it, I was shocked to my very core. This card had my name on it. What the hell is going on? It was the very same credit card that Franklin had confiscated before his business trip. I glanced at the customer, and she must have been a little bit older than I was by a couple of years, and had fancy makeup, nails, and luxury brand clothes. Definitely on the pretty side. Oh, wait, hang on. Is that a wedding ring I see too? You leave it to us, ma'am. If you could wait until Monday next week, I can personally deliver it to your address. Or would you rather come pick up the clothes here? I'll take delivery then. Very well, ma'am. Please fill out this form with your address and phone number. As I stared at the address the woman had filled out, I thought to myself, Franklin has been cheating on me without a doubt, and the woman whom he's been cheating on me with is standing right in front of me. So you've been contemptuous of me, and you've been lying to me, haven't you, darling? What the freak is this business trip? I will never forgive you as long as I live. Little did I know, this little revenge plan was about to take a turn in a direction I never would have expected. The following week, after they had been cleaned, I came to deliver his suit and shirt to the address she'd written on the form. It was a 2-story detached house with a garden, and when I rang the intercom, the woman answered. "Speedy Dryers, at your service, ma'am. You asked for a delivery of a luxury brand suit and a white business shirt?" "Oh, yes, I did. Won't be a moment. I'll be right down." I then let out a loud scream. I guess you heard my scream because there was a flurry of footsteps coming from inside the house. "Good heavens, what's wrong?" As soon as she opened the door, I slipped in without paying any heed to the woman's resistance. "Oh my God, please help me, ma'am. There's a wild boar in your yard right now." "A boar?" "Yes, a boar. He came running towards us out of nowhere. Oh my God, you need to call the police." "Oh my, don't call the police yet. Franklin, darling, come here for a minute." I made a whole fuss about calling the police, and that upset the woman, and she started shouting at someone named Franklin, who seemed to be upstairs. The stairs to the second floor were pointed up to the front of the door, and a familiar figure came clambering down.
What's going on?
"A boar! A boar! A boar came into our yard, Franklin!"
A boar? There ain't no way.
My husband looked downstairs toward the entrance, and his eyes met mine. He was so startled by my presence that he lost his balance and fell down the stairs. He hit the bottom of the stairs with a loud thud, and his groaning was combined with a woman's scream. I was startled to see my husband groaning at my feet. Although he couldn't speak, Franklin glared at me with wide, ominous eyes. I could tell he wanted to say something like, "What the frick are you doing here, bitch?" And I glared back at him, making sure my eyes expressed the unfathomable rage I was feeling. The woman clung to him as she screamed. I went to her and tapped her on the shoulder. "You'd better call an ambulance. I'd better call an ambulance." "I'll take the clothes upstairs. Will that be okay?"
Don't, no!
Franklin's war cry was drowned out by the woman screaming to the 911 operator. "There's an injured man right here. He's my sweetheart, so please come quickly. That's right, and there's a wild boar here too, so please send the police to help us." Perhaps her panic really helped the operator understand the sheer severity of the situation, and as soon as sirens could be heard approaching, and before long, an ambulance arrived with 2 police cars. The policeman ran toward where the boar supposedly disappeared. As the paramedics carried Franklin out on a stretcher, the head medic looked to me and the woman in turn before saying to the other woman,
Please come with us, ma'am.
The woman turned away. I explained, "She is not the man's wife."
Oh? Then I suppose you are, ma'am?
"My apologies, but I can't accompany him because as of now, I am no longer his wife." Franklin turned his head when I said that.
What?
I had taken the divorce papers from my husband's luggage upstairs when I went and left the clothes in his room. I fluttered it in front of his face. He groaned maliciously and fainted. The head medic sensed things between the 3 of us were very complicated and gave me one last glance, then nodded. I nodded back. Franklin was then carried away in the ambulance all by himself. After that, while he was in the hospital, I heard from him very frequently.
What the frick do you think you're doing not taking care of me?
He was as self-centered as ever. He had apparently broken both of his ankles in his admittedly terrible fall down from the stairs, and both of his legs were in casts. I have work to do. I don't have time to take care of a man who's been cheating on me.
Bullshit! You really think you can make enough of a frickin' living by working a lowly part-time job like that?
Yeah, and do you even know what you're doing with that woman? Yeah, that's right. That woman, your lover, is none other than the wife of your boss, one Mr. Hendricks McAdams.
What?
Yes, indeed. My husband was having an affair with his boss, while Mr. McAdams was working alone in another part of the country. He thought he was doing a good job of hiding it from me by taking advantage of my obedient ass, who never dared to disobey his instructions. Like you said, I'm just a lowly sucker part-timer, and maybe telling you this is not the status quo here. But you're going to be unemployed. Mr. McAdams is going to find out that you are playing around with his wife, and your ass is going to be out of a job by the end of the month. I hope you'll be able to make a decent living thereafter. Mr. Ferns, it's over for you. I moved back to my parents' home and divorced my husband. I filed for alimony, and I made the woman whom he cheated on me with pay me alimony as well. She had apparently thought Mr. Ferns had already divorced me, claiming he cleverly used the divorce papers as a means to ensnare her in his seductive ways. While it may be a compelling argument, it never held up in the court because there was no official evidence to support her claims. She was also deemed guilty of adultery, and combined, I received the handsome amount of $80,000 in damages. And at the end of the day, everyone could think it was just a bunch of self-centered excuses between cheaters of society. Mr. Ferns was no longer able to stay at the company afterwards, and although he managed to avoid getting fired, he was sent to a branch office in the countryside. Mr. McAdams evidently discovered his wife had been having an affair, and after divorcing her, he sent her on her way back to her parents' home, with the ever-haunting feelings of shame, disappointment, and grief for all of her actions. Good riddance. As for me, I still work at the same dry cleaners. Miss Weber, the kind elderly lady who helped me with the coffee stain, was feeling a whole lot better after a couple of days and returned to work. With some technical guidance, I'm now able to do the ironing to quite a degree of proficiency. To quote her charming son, I'd always thought Speedy Dryer was a small store, but it was in fact very famous for Mr. Weber's top-notch stain removal expertise. I did some quick research, and public comments that mentioned a problem with stains of any kind, mud, ketchup, oil, coffee, chocolate, marker, blood, and anything else conceivably imaginable, all showed a heap of satisfaction for his services. I've been living in self-hatred my whole married life, but now I feel so lucky to have found a good job with good people like this. I'm going to work hard here to try and become an independent person, and hopefully become mentally secure enough to find a better man with whom to have children and live a very full and happy life.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, There are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike! What have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.